Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, President Trump now has completed his meeting with Xi Jinping. It appears from the preliminary news that is now coming out of South Korea. Trump is, by the way, on his way back home. Xi is on his way back to Beijing. That they have signed some kind of a trade deal. It looks like a 1-year deal with the possibility of extensions. So we're going to get more news throughout the afternoon, obviously throughout the morning and throughout the afternoon. But it looks like his trip was a smashing success. We will get all the details as the day progresses. But while this is happening abroad, at home, there is fire and fury now among many congressional Republicans, the likes of which I haven't seen literally in decades. And so there are two massive scandals colliding at once. Let me take the one of them first. Apparently now, it has been revealed through FBI disclosures. Kash Patel, in particular, along with Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, have now released information about Jack Smith, special counsel under Biden, who launched what was called Investigation Arctic Frost. This was an investigation signed off by then Biden Attorney General Merrick Garland, signed off by Christopher Wray, Biden's FBI director, and obviously with the full knowledge and support of Joe. The Biden DOJ launched an investigation into Trump over what happened on January 6th, and in particular, his attempts to have alternate slate of electors from Pennsylvania, from Michigan, from Georgia, from Wisconsin, those contested states, to be sent back to those states in case they decided that the election was stolen and there should be another slate of electors sent. They wanted to now claim that Trump sought to overturn the election and that he was ultimately responsible for January 6th. So it was part of their lawfare against President Trump. They wanted him behind bars for 500 years. And they thought January 6th was the way to do it. Now, what has now come out is that rather than just investigate January 6th, essentially now, Biden, Garland, and Biden's so-called Politburo, his inner circle, decided on a high-risk strategy, highly illegal, clearly unethical, but it is also criminal, to deliver a kill shot, not just to Trump, but to the entire Republican Party apparatus, as Senator Chuck Grassley put it. They put together a political enemies list, and they said, let's use the fig leaf of January 6th to launch investigation after investigation into leading Republican senators without their knowledge, Republican members of Congress without their knowledge, former key Trump aides like Stephen Miller and Dan Scavino, and I could go on, without their knowledge, leading Republican conservative organizations like the late Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA without their knowledge, on a massive fishing expedition to see if they could turn up any kind of crime possible so that they could indict and imprison and jail all of them. All of them. In other words, they concocted a political enemies list. And what they did under Operation Arctic Frost, and let's just take the most explosive, they were secretly surveilling 9 Republican senators. It now appears it could be as high as 20 Republican senators. And now it has been found out through these disclosures. Listen now to this. That Judge Boasberg, remember him? The district judge, the chief district judge, who issued those nationwide injunctions against Trump, this radical leftist, preventing him from deporting Tren de Aragua or MS-13 gangbangers to El Salvador. Well, that Boasberg apparently gave Jack Smith a blank check, a court order, telling him that he could now secretly get the phone records and the phone metadata of Ted Cruz, Marsha Blackburn, Chuck Grassley, Lindsey Graham, Senator Eric Schmidt, senator after senator after senator, all of them Republicans. And what is even more egregious, not only was he going through their phone records behind their backs on no basis whatsoever, none, except to see, did they have anything to do with January 6? Who are they calling? Is that a mistress? Is that a lover? Who is this? As they were combing through the phone records, the order then told, for example, Ted Cruz's phone carrier is AT&T. AT&T kept saying, but you're violating Senator Ted Cruz's privacy. You're going through his phone records behind his back, unbeknownst to him. You're going through all of his phone data, his metadata, who he's calling, who he's not calling, how long has he been talking to that person, what day, what time, all of it behind his back, which is illegal and in violation of his privacy. We have an obligation under the law to tell Ted Cruz we had to hand over your phone records to Jack Smith and to the DOJ and to the Biden special counsel, Smith. Boasberg, in his order, told AT&T, you will not tell Ted Cruz that you have to hand over his phone records. You will not tell Ted Cruz that Jack Smith is secretly surveilling him and going through all of his phone data and looking at who he's calling and who he's not calling. And the same thing for Grassley, the same thing for Blackburn, the same thing for Senator Lindsey Graham, the same thing for Senator Eric Schmidt, senator after senator after senator. They were being secretly surveilled in this massive abuse of power because they were hoping to find any kind of crime possible in order to destroy all of these senators, the leadership of the Republican Party, conservative organizations, in other words, to guarantee that the Democrats win the election in 2024. Don't just take out Trump, take out almost all of his key supporters, both in Congress and institutionally and organizationally. Now, as Chuck Grassley said yesterday at a highly emotional, very angry press conference, because now you've got senators saying, whoa. The Biden regime, through Jack Smith, through Arctic Frost, you spied on us behind our back? You wanted to see our conversations and who we were talking to behind our back? And then you use this radical left-wing judge to give a ridiculous court order saying that our phone carriers couldn't even tell us that they had to hand over all of our phone records and phone data, and they were told that we had no way of knowing this and that we shouldn't know this, that our own government is spying on us, because Boasberg argued that Ted Cruz would destroy evidence, that Blackburn would destroy evidence, that Grassley would destroy evidence, that Senator Graham would destroy evidence, that Senator Schmidt would destroy evidence, with zero evidence, by the way, whatsoever, that they were going to do any of this. If this was done to the Democrats, there would be hell to pay. As Grassley said, it would be Watergate-style hearings. The Attorney General would be risking going to jail. The FBI director would be risking going to jail. the special counsel who went after this and engaged in this kind of illegal criminal activity would be immediately disbarred and go to jail. And so now Republicans are demanding Watergate-style hearings. They want to put Merrick Garland under oath. They want to put Christopher Wray under oath. They want to put Jack Smith under oath. They want to put Lisa Monaco under oath. In other words, they want to put all of them under oath. And President Trump from Asia said, enough is enough. Pam Bondi now needs to launch a massive criminal investigation. There now needs to be a massive investigation in Congress. People need to go to jail. They're right. Now, the question is, look, this is the chart that I would paint. That's why I don't want to be Charlie Brown and Lucy. If you know that famous cartoon, Charlie Brown, he always, he's going to kick the football. Every time he tries to kick it, Lucy pulls the football up and he, falls on his rear end every single time. In other words, he keeps, he's gullible and he keeps falling for it. So, this is a similar pattern. Here's the chart. At the top, Democrats commit crimes. Right next to it, Republicans get outraged. Underneath it, nothing happens. And that's the pattern over and over and over again. Democrats commit outrageous crimes and engage in illegal behavior, abuse of power. Republicans yell, scream, stomp, get very angry, make a big show of it, and no one's ever held accountable. Nothing ever happens. No one loses their jobs, never mind going to jail or going to prison. So we've been through this routine now so often that many of you and great audience of Kuhner country, you become jaded. I've become jaded. You've become cynical. I've become increasingly cynical. The only reason why I'm saying this time feels different, it feels different, is you can sense the level of anger, the level of intensity in their voice. I really thought Ted Cruz was going to get a heart attack yesterday. I mean, I don't blame him. I don't blame him for being upset. I would be just as upset as he is. If I found out that my own government, I'm a sitting U.S. senator, and the opposition party in power unleashes the Department of Justice with the full blessing of the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, and the FBI Director, Christopher Wray, unleashes a fishing expedition to try to tie me to some crime that they have no idea whether I committed or not. In fact, they're just looking to find something. And so they start illegally violating my privacy, spying on me, surveilling me, telling my phone carrier, I don't have AT&T, but so, Ted Cruz does. So you go to AT&T and say, no, hand over his phone records. Hand over all of his phone metadata, everything. We want to know who's he been talking to, who's he been calling, how long were those phone calls, when were these phone calls made? I mean, we want to know the whole thing. Oh, and by the way, we just got this crazy Judge Boasberg, to sign off on this outrageous, frankly, again, illegal order, saying you can't tell Ted Cruz, which you're obligated by law, any citizen, never mind a senator, we had to give your private data to a special counsel, a law enforcement investigator. You at least have a right to know that you're being investigated. They were ordered by a judge, AT&T. You cannot inform Ted Cruz that the government of the United States, in this case, Jack Smith, are pouring through your phone records and your phone data. They're spying on you. They're monitoring your calls, who you're talking to, how long you've been talking to, why are you talking to these people? And they're not just doing it to you. They're doing it to every top Republican that they believe is a supporter of Donald Trump. because their goal wasn't just to put Trump in jail. Their goal was to destroy the entire Republican apparatus, is the term that Chuck Grassley used yesterday. The entire Republican infrastructure and network that was protecting Trump, both within Congress and in very important organizations like Turning Point USA. What the hell did Turning Point USA have to do with January 6th? Nothing. What did Charlie Kirk have to do with January 6th? Literally nothing. But they went in there and they illegally were investigating, going through their records, going through their books, going through their phone records. They were illegally surveilling and spying Turning Point USA and countless other conservative organizations in the hopes of finding something. In other words, let's just use January 6th as the excuse, and then we're just going to go through everything. And whatever we find, we find. So it could either be affairs or, whatever, sexual scandals. Then we'll use that to humiliate them. Or maybe we can find something criminal. I don't know. Taxes, finance, campaign finance violations, whatever we can find. And then we'll nail them all. We'll throw them all in jail. Now, this is such a grotesque abuse of power that I'm telling you, it really puts Watergate to shame. Now, because the Republicans were the direct victims, because these powerful Republican senators, now it happened to them. And the target was put on their back. And they were now the victims of this sweeping abuse of power and this government surveillance and spying campaign. That they were now put in the crosshairs of this legal political witch hunt. And it was their phones and their data that was compromised and their privacy that was violated. They're on the warpath. So, listen now. I'm going to play it on the other side, I promise. You got to hear these cuts. You've got to. It is fire and fury now. This could lead to Jack Smith's undoing. 617-266-6868 if you want to be part of the show. This is a huge story. I'm telling you, this is, I think, I'm fingers crossed. I hope I'm not Charlie Brown again with Lucy and the football. But and I want to play the cuts. You'll see what I mean, or you'll hear what I mean. They're livid. I mean, no, they're really livid. You can tell it's not fake outrage. They're really angry now. Republicans are angry. Republican senators are angry. Trump is beyond livid. And so we may actually get some accountability here. We shall see. Now, I just want to read this from Larry in Messenger, because I think that Larry makes a very good point. This is what Larry said on Messenger just a couple minutes ago. Jeff, didn't we say for years that if they can do it to President Trump, they can do it to anyone? Well, that's now what the Republicans have found out. Just like they were spying illegally on Trump and fishing, looking for anything to get him on. That's exactly now what they were doing to, it appears, as many as 20 Republican senators. And, they didn't do it to Susan Collins. Let's just be frank about this. They didn't do it to Lisa Murkowski. They didn't do it to Mitt Romney, who was at the time in the Senate. In other words, the anti-Trump rhinos, they didn't touch. They went after either real Trump supporters. Eric Schmidt, senator from Missouri, is a hardcore America First MAGA conservative. Marsha Blackburn is a hardcore America First, MAGA conservative. Ted Cruz, whatever you may think is in his heart, votes MAGA almost, 99% of the time. Lindsey Graham, even that neocon warmonger, will run on TV, flap his mouth, and he defends Trump often because he wants to ally himself with Trump to keep winning re-election in South Carolina. So what I'm saying is these are either his real or at least media supporters. And they were the ones who were being spied on in the name of January 6, quote unquote. They were the ones who Merrick Garland gave the order to Jack Smith, Operation Arctic Frost. Find me any dirt you can. Spy on them. Get their phone records. Surveil them. Who are they talking to? How long are they talking to these people? And make sure that none of these Republican senators even know that their records and their phone data is being used so that we can track their every move and find out who they're talking to, because we want to nail them. So listen now. This is, by the way, abuse of power. This is criminal. This is illegal. And this is a grotesque abuse of power. And it was done politically to destroy and decapitate the Trump Republican Party. Turning Point USA, pro-Trump organization, spy, and seek to infiltrate and destroy. Donors. They went after big-time Republican donors, almost all of them, to a man and woman, pro-Trump. So, listen now to Ted Cruz yesterday saying that the Biden DOJ, this was through Jack Smith, the special counsel, signed off on subpoenas to get the phone records of, at a minimum, 9 Republican senators, including, obviously, Cruz. Roll cut 30, Mike.
The Biden Justice Department signed off on issuing subpoenas for the phone records of at least 9 U.S. senators. 20% of the Republicans in the United States Senate were the target of this fishing expedition. They did so in complete contravention of the Constitution, of separation of powers, of the speech and debate clause, of free speech, of basic rights of privacy. This is an executive who believes it is justified spying on their opponents in the legislature.
Bingo.
Because they convince themselves the ends justify the means.
Bingo. Okay? This is about spying on your political opponents and using January 6th as the cover, the fig leaf, the justification to do it. Okay? Remember, Watergate was about spying and abuse of power. Now, that's why they're saying this is worse than Watergate. So, they now want to go after these senators. They're now illegally spying on these senators. Now, they go to Jack Smith. Now, AT&T comes into play because that's his phone carrier, Ted Cruz's phone carrier. So they got to go to AT&T to get his phone records. That's where his data is. That's, his phone records. Who's he calling to? Now, I'm telling you, and I got to be careful how I say this. They wanted to find an affair. That's what they really wanted to find. I'm not going to say anything more than that because there have been allegations. I'm not saying it's true. I'm just saying that there have been a lot of allegations, innuendo about Cruz for years about his marriage. Now, I'm telling you what they really wanted had nothing to do with January 6th. Is he calling a certain number often? Who's the person that he's calling? Is it a woman? Is it a woman on his staff? That's what they really wanted. That's why, by the way, Cruz is seeing red. Okay, I'm telling you. So, Jack Smith goes to AT&T and says, you got to give us now Ted Cruz's phone records. Now, remember, what has Ted Cruz done? Nothing. Like, you got to have probable cause. He had nothing to do with January 6th. Remember, again, the predicate is January 6th. What did Ted Cruz have to do with January 6th? Literally, nothing. What did Marsha Blackburn? Nothing. Chuck Grassley? Nothing. Eric Schmidt? Nothing. Lindsey Graham? Nothing. I mean, I could go on and on. So all these people they're going after had nothing to do with January 6th. Now they're just spying for the sake of spying. Now, listen to what happened. Roll cut 31, Mike.
One of those subpoenas went from Jack Smith to AT&T, seeking my cell phone communications. It went to AT&T, and I actually want to commend AT&T for doing the right thing. AT&T is based in Texas. AT&T looked at that subpoena, and they went to their legal counsel, and they said, what should we do with that subpoena? And their legal counsel said, you cannot comply because this is protected by the speech and debate clause of the U.S. Constitution. And so AT&T declined to comply, did not hand over my cell phone records. Now, one might ask.
Now, to their credit, they said this is illegal. They said, well, this is illegal and unconstitutional. So absolutely not. No way. We're going to get our pantsuit off. No, yet. Absolutely not. So the question then is, who was the judge that signed off on this ridiculous court order? Trying to force the subpoena, signed off on the subpoena and the court order to force AT&T to hand over Ted Cruz's phone records illegally. Here it comes. Okay, I don't want to play it. I'm sorry. It's a 60-second cut. We have 60 seconds till the break, so I don't want to rush it. I'm going to play it on the other side. I'm going to play a couple more cuts, and then I want to take your calls. Here is now, this is why this story could really explode. It's been swept away because of Trump's historic trip to Asia. And by the way, he's racking up trade deal after trade deal after trade deal, and he just signed a huge deal with China, along with Japan, South Korea, Cambodia, Vietnam. It's one of the most successful trade missions in American history. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, so with, Trump's obviously historic trip to Asia and the government shutdown and with all these SNAP benefits set to be cut off in 2 days, this, that's taking up all the oxygen in terms of the media. So this massive scandal is so far off the radar. But I'm telling you, if they follow through on what their threats are, I'm talking about the Republicans, to hold Democrats and especially now the Biden regime accountable, they've got them. I mean, they've got them dead to rights. And when they say this is worse than Watergate, this is what Ted Cruz said, he's right. When Chuck Grassley now says he's banging the table and says we want Watergate-style hearings, and we're not going to take no for an answer. If they get that, the Democrats are going to be in big trouble. Biden, his entire regime, Merrick Garland, Christopher Wray, Jack Smith, they're going to go to jail. They're going to go to jail. Remember, Watergate led to the downfall of Nixon, and many other people underneath him went to prison for years. So here is now what they've held this major press conference. And so Jack Smith and Biden's DOJ go to AT&T, which is Ted Cruz's phone carrier. And they said, we want you to cough up all of his records, his phone records, his phone data, give it to all of us. AT&T is like, what? No, this can't be legal. So they then go to their legal counsel, and the legal counsel rightly says this is blatantly unconstitutional. We're going to get our pants suit off. Pardon my French. We're going to get our ass suit off. No way do you comply with this subpoena. I don't care what judge wrote the order. So Ted Cruz now says, well, who is the judge? What judge would approve a fishing expedition like this? You go after somebody with no evidence at all that any kind of a crime was committed. None. And you go to violate his most fundamental privacy. I mean, this is crime after crime after crime. This is illegality upon illegality upon illegality. So what crazy judge would have signed off on this? And guess who? Guess who? Roll cut 32, Mike.
Ordinarily, a phone company being asked to hand over the phone records of a sitting senator would notify that senator. Well, there was a reason AT&T did not do so. Accompanying the subpoena was an order, which I have in my hand right here, an order that was signed by Judge James E. Boasberg. Now, who is Boasberg? Boasberg is that radical leftist judge who is out of control, who has been issuing nationwide injunctions, one after the other, trying to stop President Trump from carrying out his mandate from the voters. Judge Boasberg issued an order to AT&T and signed that order, prohibiting AT&T from informing me of this subpoena for at least 1 year.
Now, this is incredible. Now, again, I know I said it earlier, but just so that you really crystallize it in everybody's mind, Boasberg is the crazy leftist judge. He's a Biden hack who kept issuing nationwide injunctions across the whole country saying, no, you can't deport Trent Araga. Remember Trump was flying him into El Salvador? Or MS-13 gangbangers, illegals, criminal, violent, murdering illegals. And he said, no, you can't do that. And eventually he was shot down at the Supreme Court. But basically he was saying, no, my writ overrules the American people and the democratic legitimacy, the democratic mandate they gave Trump. They voted for Trump to deport these criminal illegals. And Boasberg said, no, I don't care what the American people say. I don't care what they voted for. I'm Judge Boasberg. I'm a king, essentially. I'm a dictator, and I will overrule the results of the election. And eventually the Supreme Court said, no, you're crazy. You're abusing your power. Well, now you know why they judge shop to certain judges. Because now we find out they use these judges again and again. So the judge orders AT&T saying, you're not going to tell Trump that the Biden regime was trying to spy on you. This was spying. We're not going to, you're not going to tell Trump that they were looking for your phone records and they asked to hand them over. And then, by the way, and you're not going to tell Grassley, and you're not going to tell Senator Schmidt, and you're not going to tell Senator Lindsey Graham, and you're not going to tell Senator, you can run down the whole line, Senator Marsha Blackburn, all of them that were targeted. You're not going to tell them. So they're going to have no idea that they were being spied on. And they're going to have no idea what the demonstration was trying to do behind their backs. Now, Boasberg gives a reason. He says the reason why AT&T should not inform Ted Cruz in this case is because he believes, that Boasberg says, but if you tell him, he's going to destroy evidence. What evidence? There's been no crime alleged. Literally, there was no crime. They said, we're looking into January 6th. Okay, I want to look at these people. Okay, did they do anything? No, but we want to look. Okay. So there was no crime on anything. So what evidence are they going to destroy? But he's now reached, this is what is so illegal. This is a judge, how do I say this? This is so unprofessional. It's so unethical. It's so illegal. A judge doesn't issue a subpoena having reached a factual conclusion. In other words, look, I believe there are drugs. Here's the pictures. Here's what our informants are telling us. You go to a judge. They're selling crack cocaine in that house. Oh, really? Okay. Well, I give you a subpoena now. You have a right to go in and raid the place or whatever, bug their phones. Now, even then, the judge doesn't say, yes, they're selling cocaine. He doesn't even reach a factual conclusion. He just says, there is evidence. There's no question. Could be. Probability. Yeah, probable cause. Okay, I'm going to give you your warrant. No. What this guy does is he says he's going to destroy evidence. He's literally, Cruz is going to destroy evidence. Again, what evidence? Well, whatever. Whatever you guys are looking for, he's going to destroy it. So he makes a factual conclusion about what Ted Cruz, and by the way, all of them, Blackburn, Grassley, Graham, all of the senators, with no evidence whatsoever that they were going to destroy anything. Listen now to Ted Cruz. This is unbelievable. This guy should be kicked off the judiciary. This is such an egregious abuse of power. Like this, when I say this is out of Stalin's Russia, this is out of Stalin's Russia. Dude, are you a judge or are you a freaking commissar? Like what, just you, whatever the party wants you to do? Yeah, whatever. Like whether it's grounded in law, whether it's grounded in facts, whether it's legal, whether just, yeah, here it is. Do what you want. Listen now to Ted Cruz. Roll cut 32A. Mike.
And Judge Boasberg gave the basis for that order. And I'm going to quote from the order Judge Boasberg signed. The court finds reasonable grounds to believe that such disclosure will result in destruction of or tampering with evidence, intimidation of potential witnesses, and serious jeopardy to the investigation. That's an order a judge signed. Now, I can tell you right now, there is precisely zero evidence to conclude that I am likely to destroy or tamper with evidence or to intimidate potential witnesses.
And, and he's completely right. And think about how insulting this is. I mean, you have to understand it now from a U.S. Senator's point of view. You're saying, I'm so low, I'm so immoral, I'm so unethical, I'm such a gangster that, like, you know what, I'm going to tamper with evidence? What, I'm going to intimidate witnesses? I'm going to destroy evidence? I'm sorry, based on what? Like, whatever you think of Ted Cruz, it's not a question of Ted Cruz. It's a question, look, what is Ted, whatever you think about this vote, that vote, said this, didn't do this, I'm not talking, has Ted Cruz ever destroyed evidence? Ever? Has Ted Cruz ever intimidated witnesses? No, really. Has you ever seen Ted Cruz with a 2x4? You know, like some gangbang, you know, like some mafiosi at a construction site and saying, I'm going to kneecap you? You better, hey, buddy, you better keep your mouth shut. Now, he continues. He says he didn't just say that about me, that I was going to destroy evidence, tamper with evidence, intimidate witnesses with no evidence whatsoever. He said it about every single Republican senator. Roll cut 33. Mike.
This order is an abuse of power. This order is a weaponized legal system. My assumption, we don't have the subpoenas that were issued for the other senators, but my assumption is Judge Boasberg printed these things out like the placemats at Denny's, one after the other. We don't know that for a fact, but I feel confident that he concluded it's likely that Lindsey Graham would destroy evidence, and Marsha Blackburn would destroy evidence, and Eric Schmidt would destroy evidence, and Chuck Grassley would destroy evidence. If a litigant makes a claim for which there is no factual basis, that litigant is subject to sanctions in federal court.
In other words, you're gonna, they get impeached. They get impeached. Now, I've never seen Cruz this hot. I'm telling you. Grassley's 90 years old. People were telling him to calm down. He's going to get a heart attack. Literally, his staff was like, please calm down. You're 90 years old. Please calm down. I mean, Grassley, I've never seen him like this. Marsha Blackburn is now, she's on the warpath. That's why I'm saying the anger. No, this is not your usual, they do an act, they do a show, it's a dog and pony show, and okay, we move on. This, because it hit home, it was them. It was them. And, maybe some of them do have skeletons in their closet. I'm not saying they're doing anything illegal. I told you, with Ted Cruz, it's rumors about, marriage, okay? Infidelity. Let that go. So that's why they're spying. They want to dig up dirt. Either find crimes or use it to blackmail. I'm telling you, that's what this was. This was a gross abuse of power. This was spying on the opposition. There's no question. There's no question. That's why they're going, like, heads have to roll. Like, you can't. I'm telling you, if you're a Republican, you cannot allow them to get away with this. I'm telling you, you're crazy if you let them get away with this. You're nuts. You're basically, you might as well just commit political suicide. You're nuts. You can't. They have to pay a price. Whether you want to or not, they have to pay a price. Now, listen to Ted Cruz. He's now demanding that the House of Representatives, Speaker Johnson, and the Republicans vote to impeach Boasberg, that clown, and throw him off the bench. Now, that's something they should have done months ago. Now, because now it's affected them. You see, when it affects them, boy, oh boy, do they move fast. You know, I got to be I got to be honest here. When they were spying on us, yeah, they got angry in front of the cameras, but they did nothing. Well, you remember when they were spying on parents and calling them terrorists under the Biden regime, going to school board meetings and complaining about, you know, pornography in the classroom and diversity, equity, inclusion, and critical race theory, or when they were going after Catholics, or when they went after the J6ers. Yeah, they did a little dog and pony show, but nobody was held accountable. So you see, when they go after common people like you and me, yeah, they yell, they whine, they complain, they bang their fists on the table. There's a lot of outrage, but the Democrats get away with their crimes. Now that it was done to them, now they're seeing red. Now, I'm telling you, Boasberg's in trouble. Now, the idiot went too far. And I'm telling you, if I'm Jack Smith, I would stay in London. Stay in Europe. Don't come back because they may get him. I'm telling you, they may get him. There's going to be Watergate-style hearings. He's going to be called under oath. He's called under oath. Either he commits perjury, or if he tells the truth, he's going to jail. Merrick Garland's going to jail. Christopher Wray's going to jail. And I'm telling you, I don't know how Joe Biden gets out of this one, because he should have pardoned himself. Because this was a naked spying operation and using a fishing expedition to go through and violate people's fundamental constitutional rights and their fundamental privacy. There's no way. This is an open and shut case. This is a black and white. They did it to Trump. They did it to us. And now these Republicans realize just because you're in the swamp, you thought you were protected. No, you're not. They did it to them. And now they're saying you've crossed the line because you did it to us, i.e. the swamp. Listen now. This is Ted Cruz, not at the press conference. This is Ted Cruz now on Newsmax. Roll cut 35, Mike.
It is a complete abuse of judicial power, and I've called on the House of Representatives to impeach Judge Boasberg. The Constitution, when Judge Boasberg decided to become a partisan warrior and be part of the most egregious abuse of power, this is Joe Biden's Watergate, and I believe the House should impeach Judge Boasberg, and I also think we are going to get to the bottom of every partisan who signed off on surveilling and spying on 20% of the Republicans in the Senate. That's what Joe Biden and their DOJ did.
He's right. He's right. Impeach Judge Boasberg. Why? Because you have to have these leftist judges now have to pay a price. You've got to start instilling some fear in them. Like, the days of us getting away with this are over. We're going to lose our jobs, we're going to lose our pensions, and we may even go to jail. Ooh, no, I'm not going to sign off on this. No, you go to jail. I'm not going to jail. And look, Jack Smith needs to pay. Lisa Monaco needs to pay. Christopher Wray needs to pay. Merrick Garland on this scandal. Merrick Garland needs to pay. And remember, Biden's Watergate, you look at Watergate. If the Republicans are serious, it brought down Richard Nixon. It permanently stained his reputation. He's never gotten out of that to this day, even though he's been dead for decades. His attorney general went to prison. Many of his top advisors went to prison. In other words, people very close to him went to jail. Now, they didn't go to jail for 20 years, but they went to jail for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years. They went to jail. So if you're going to do a Watergate-style hearing, and if this is truly Biden's Watergate, then this can't stop with Boasberg. It's time to start putting people behind bars. And so my question to you, very straight up, are you shocked now at this? This is a massive scandal. There's no question. Senators were being spied on. They were being illegally surveilled. Many of the key top Republican senators were. By the way, they went after top donors, top media people at Fox. They were illegally spying on radio talk show hosts. They were spying on Charlie Kirk. They were fishing through Turning Point USA. They were looking for anything. Nothing, they used January 6th to start, looking, but they had nothing to do with January 6th. They were looking to find something in the books, whatever they were doing, in order to destroy them. There were over 197 subpoenas that were sent out under the Arctic Frost investigation to over 430 individuals, senators, members of Congress, donors, journalists, social media influencers, business groups, organized conservative organizations. They were their goal was to decapitate the entire Trump opposition to Biden legally. To just literally destroy them. Now, I'm telling you, this makes Watergate look like Watergate was spying, but it was a third-rate break-in at the Watergate Hotel, which is where the DNC at the time, the Democratic National Committee, was located. And they literally stuck a stupid little dinky recorder underneath the desk. So they could listen to, who the DNC chair is talking to, what's he saying on the phone. So it was spying on your political opposition. But it was one office, one hotel, third-rate burglary, and there was, Nixon tried to cover it up, and they found out he was covering it up. And by the way, Nixon never ordered the break-in. Nixon never ordered the spying. He couldn't believe they were so stupid afterwards. The problem was many of his top aides were implicated. So as he famously said, I can't cut, if I get rid of Haldeman, I get rid of Ehrlichman, these were his top people. He goes, cut off my right arm, cut off my left arm. He goes, I have to cover it up. Hence, the phrase, the cover-up is worse than the crime.
It is a complete abuse of judicial power, and I've called on the House of Representatives to impeach Judge Boasberg. The Constitution, when Judge Boasberg decided to become a partisan warrior and be part of the most egregious abuse of power, this is Joe Biden's Watergate, and I believe the House should impeach Judge Boasberg, and I also think we are going to get to the bottom of every partisan who signed off on surveilling and spying on 20% of the Republicans in the Senate. That's what Joe Biden and their DOJ did.
That was Senator Ted Cruz, from your lips to God's ears. 7:20 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer, 617-266-6868. Okay, lines are loaded. Let's go to Bill in Sudbury. Bill, this is a very unique honor, my friend. You are going to kick off the phone calls today. So go ahead, Bill, and as always, welcome.
Hello, good morning. Good morning, everyone. Of course they will. Well, first of all, the FBI always operates in secret. They never call you on the phone and say, by the way, we're going to be looking at you the next few months. It's always a secret. So I don't get the whole spying thing. Do you really think the FBI shouldn't be watching U.S. senators kind of, especially? You don't acknowledge that Ted Cruz is a key figure in January 6th. He's the one you guys always point to. He's the one who was going to stand up and explain it all away. By the way, we've never heard that. 5 years later, we've never heard this magic speech he was going to give to reverse the election.
Well, Bill, I got to say, again, very troubling phone call, because it shows, again, the totalitarian mindset of liberals and the left. Number one, Ted Cruz has released the speech that he was going to deliver. It was one of the states where he was going to show rampant voter fraud. Now, what does that have to do with what took place outside on the steps of January 6th? And, you know, even after a while, even the Democrats admitted Ted Cruz had nothing to do with January 6th. The FBI admitted he had nothing to do with January 6th. So your point, I don't understand your point. You can't investigate someone unless you have probable cause. This is not the Stasi. We're not living in a dictatorship. This is not the Gestapo or the KGB, where people can surveil you illegally, where people can investigate you illegally. I mean, are you telling me that you want the FBI to go through your phone records without probable cause and listen in on your conversations without a warrant, without probable cause, or go and get through all your personal information just for the hell of it, because they're looking to destroy political opponents? Is this now I guess you are a supporter of Zoran Mamdani, because that's what he believes, and that's what Antifa believes, and that's what communists and Marxists believe. So, Bill, I guess I have to ask you again, it's a shocking call. Do you believe that the FBI has the right to spy and listen in on people's phone calls or get their phone records, which is a gross violation of their privacy, without any kind of probable cause? Yes or no?
Had an order from a judge, Jeff. You were just talking about the judge and how he issued the order wrongly.
Yes, okay? But the order was illegal. But Bill, the order was illegal, and AT&T didn't comply with the order because it was illegal. And and what's even more outrageous is that the order specifically told AT&T, which is against the law, you can't notify someone that the FBI is combing through their through their phone records. Bill, if the FBI is going through your phone records behind your back without you knowing it, the phone company, your carrier, has a legal obligation to tell you, because it's supposed to be private. Hey, I want you to know law enforcement, for whatever reason, is going through your phone records. You're aware of that, right?
Eva, that you think the FBI calls you ahead of time to tell you that they're looking at you. Okay? And how naive
Bill,
of you...
Please stop. Bill, I'm trying to have a rational conversation with you. It's not the FBI that calls you. If the FBI is going through a fishing expedition, here, I run the FBI. Just humor me. I say, not that I would ever do it. Let's get Bill in Sudbury. Let's just get him. So the FBI says, okay. And they start looking through your phone records. Say you use Verizon. I don't know who your carrier is. Verizon has a legal obligation to tell you, Bill, just so that you know, law enforcement is asking us to hand over your phone records. And they got a warrant. And in this case, we felt we had no choice but to hand over your phone records. You have to be told. You have rights as a citizen. This is not a police state. So again, I have to ask you, you don't want us to have rights? Seriously, I'm asking you a serious question. Go.
up two things. You're mixing up two things. You're saying that your agreement with the United States is the same as your agreement with AT&T. We have learned over and over and over again, you don't have an agreement with the USA about your phone records. You have an agreement with AT&T, and have you ever tried to read that document, your phone agreement? Are you seriously telling me you don't think that there's... when you immediately say if they're going on a fishing expedition, how about if they're going after legitimately dangerous people? Okay? You think they should call them and tell them?
Ted Cruz, hold on. Ted Cruz is a legitimate dangerous person? I'm going to say something now. Honestly, I don't think I've ever said in all the years I've been on the air. And it's not an order. I never order Sandy or Mike to do anything. I respect their spheres of authority and their spheres of autonomy. So when it comes, for example, to, Friday caller of the week, I leave that up to Mike and to Sandy. We have the best of the Kuhner report that runs on the weekends. That is something that, Mike, is it you that puts it together or Sandy? It's you. Mike, have I ever told you, seriously, have I ever told you, play this, play that, take this monologue, play that phone call. I leave that. Mike is saying, you may try to, but the moment you say do this or do that, I say that's not happening. Okay. But Mike, really, I've never asked you to do something. This time, it's just a request. You can do whatever you want, Mike. I'd like you to in the best of, include this phone call with Bill in Sudbury, and I'll tell you why. I want to read this from Mark. It's a message that Mark sent to me on Messenger. Jeff, it's time to come clean and admit that Bill from Sudbury is a plant for your show, or he's like an AI creation, because there is no way in hell somebody can be that stupid. Come on, Jeff. Fess up. Laugh out loud. Come on, Jeff. And look, I give you my word. To all of you, really, I give you my word. Bill is not a plant. He's a real person. And has been calling this show for many years. Now, the reason why I want the phone call, if Mike would, it's up to him. But why I think it's so illustrative. Do you see how authoritarian and tyrannical these moonbats are? Democrats, liberals, that's what Bill is. He's just a hack for the Democratic Party. According to them, and that's what was laid out in the last phone call, the deep state can do whatever it wants in the service of the Democratic Party and a Democratic president. So, if they want to spy on you, what's the problem? They can do whatever they want. If the FBI wants to go on a fishing expedition, let them go. If they want to spy on Ted Cruz or Chuck Grassley or Marsha Blackburn or spy on the political opposition, go ahead. You want to look for some fake crime to get them over? Go ahead. That's totalitarianism. That's literally communism. That's what the left has now devolved and generated into. And that was on full display in that conversation. The deep state, the FBI, the CIA, whatever. As long as you're doing it on behalf of a Democrat, Joe Biden, and a Democrat administration and the Democratic Party, do whatever you want. Do whatever you want. You have no expectation. It doesn't matter that the law says you have an expectation of privacy. It doesn't matter what the Constitution says. It doesn't matter that every cell phone carrier is legally obligated to let you know if law enforcement or the FBI is collecting, or the government is collecting your phone data without your knowledge. It doesn't matter, because the party does what the party wants. That's why Democrats now are too extreme, too radical, frankly, too anti-democratic to ever be allowed to come back to power again. That is the real shocking truth. I forget Bill in Sudbury. He's just an example. But that's how they think. And now it's all coming out of their disgusting, grotesque abuses of power under Biden and under Obama. And imagine had we lost in 2024, none of this would be coming out. It would have gotten worse and worse and worse. Joe in Abington. Thanks for holding, Joe, and welcome.
Jeff, I want to tell you about a very public feud Obama had with General Petraeus. It was about Obama wanted to remove all the troops. Petraeus publicly disagreed and embarrassed Obama because they left 5,000 and there was instability with attacks and bombings. And Petraeus was right. They left 5,000 troops there. And shortly after embarrassing Obama, it came out that Petraeus was in this long-term affair. I believe the same tools they used on the senators were used on Petraeus. It was never proven, but there's a lot of mysterious stuff like that throughout Obama's total reign of power.
You're completely right. And Joe, and just furthermore, this is, look, there's so many stories I could do every day. Okay. I don't have time. I can only focus on the biggest ones. And to me, what I think are the most important. Tulsi Gabbard now, she's incredible. So she's now disclosed this, Joe, just so that all of you know. The intelligence communities within our government, and this began under Bush through the Patriot Act, and it got much worse under Obama. Obama really put it all on steroids. They have now infiltrated porn sites. Now you're going to say, well, what does this have to do with what we're talking about? Apparently now, if they want to get you, what they do is they track you, and if you have, let's say you go to a porn website or whatever, they can literally have the technology to not only watch what you're doing, to not only know what you're doing, but forgive me, they have cameras that can take picture of you if you're, pleasuring yourself as you're watching, say, a porn video. And what they do is they then use that to blackmail people. Well, we'll let your wife know. We'll let your boyfriend know. Or whatever, vice versa. We'll let your girlfriend know. We'll let your, we'll let your boyfriend know. We'll let your husband know. Like it goes both ways. So what I'm saying is now, I'm telling you that if you go on any of these sites, you're most likely the government is watching you. This is by Tulsi Gabbard. That now, especially the big porn sites, according to Tulsi. She said the big porn sites are hand in glove with the CIA, with the NSA, with the FBI, with all of these deep state agencies. Now, that to me is a disgusting, grotesque abuse of power. It's a disgusting violation of privacy. Whatever you think about porn, and I'm a big opponent of pornography. Okay, but that's another topic for another time. That's your business. That's not the state's business. And they shouldn't be, recording you and tracking you on what you watch and what you don't watch. But they use that potentially as blackmail. So I'm just giving you an example. Not only are they going after generals, not only are they going after Republican senators, not only are they going after Charlie Kirk or Turning Point USA, or if you want, I could name you the radio talk show hosts and journalists and social media influencers that Jack Smith was, I want to know their files. I want to know their phones. I want to know their conversations. Who are they talking to? But I'm telling you, they're also looking at the porn sites that people go to. So, yeah, they use blackmail. That's how they do it. Or they try to humiliate you. And that's how they hold leverage over people. It's even, okay, well, we know it won't cost you your marriage. But boy, you really got into that video, huh? You were really into it. Well, we could just, we could leak that onto the dark web and this thing will go viral. Oh, everybody will be making fun of you. Is that what you want? That's how they blackmail and control people. It's 1984. It's George Orwell. And that's why I've been saying this for a long time. We have to destroy the deep state. Okay, worse than Watergate. That's what now Republicans in Congress are saying about these bombshell revelations about the Arctic frost investigation led by special counsel at the time, Jack Smith, under Joe Biden's Department of Justice. Attorney General Merrick Garland signed off, as well as Christopher Wray, FBI director. They signed off on the illegal spying and surveillance of leading Republican senators, many of them pro-Trump MAGA senators, members of Congress, but also conservative organizations, business organizations, high-profile donors, journalists, social media influencers. They were looking to dig up as much dirt as possible by using January 6 as the excuse, the fig leaf, to try to get phone records, spy, get data, all of it illegal. And now it's all come to the surface. So let me ask all of you, the judge that gave the green light to all of this, and now there's calls for him to be impeached, Judge James Boasberg. The Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. Will Judge James Boasberg still be on the bench in a year? A, yes. B, no. Right now, Kuhner Country is very split. It's basically 49% of you say yes, and 51% of you say no. In other words, 49% of you basically say the Republicans are all talk and no action. They're just blowing steam. They're just venting, yelling, screaming, shouting like they always do after Democrats are caught committing crimes, and then nothing comes of it. 51% of you say, this time could be different. And I think the reason why is because, no, they were the direct victims. The spying now was done on them. The violations of their rights and their privacy and the abuse of power that was unleashed was done to them. And so maybe this time there's going to be some real follow through. Anyway, I want to hear from you. A, yes. B, no. Will Boasberg still be on the bench in a year? You can vote on my webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, KUHN as in National ER. You can also vote via X, and man, was I active on X last night. My handle there, all one word, at the Kuhner Report, KUHNER. Okay. Is Arctic frost worse than Watergate? This spying on Ted Cruz, on Chuck Grassley, on Marsha Blackburn, on Lindsey Graham, on Senator Eric Schmidt, on other Republican members of Congress, on Charlie Kirk. I mean, I could go on. If you want, I'll name you the journalists at Fox and Newsmax and talk radio hosts and social media influencers and conservative organizations. Is this scandal worse than Watergate? Are the Republicans correct? And do you believe we will see Watergate-style hearings? Should we see Watergate-style hearings? Billy in Dedham. Thanks for holding, Billy, and welcome.
Yes, let me ask you a question. Can you give me the chapter and section of the law that says that the phone company's mandated to advise you if your phone is being looked into?
I can definitely look that up for you, Billy. And Ted Cruz is going to use that. It's going to be also in the articles of impeachment for Boasberg. And it's why the, if you want, I'll play you the cut. AT&T refused to comply with the subpoena from Jack Smith. They said, well, that's illegal. What you're asking us to do is literally illegal. Now, if there's probable cause, and let's say, not that you would do this, Billy, but just for the sake of argument, If there's probable cause, then yes, then they would give that information over. But if there's no probable cause, and that's the problem, there was zero evidence, there was no probable cause. If for the hell of it, your phone carrier decides to give your information to anybody, not just law enforcement, anybody, it's a crime. It's illegal. Your phone records are private. I don't have any business, Billy. I mean, it's nothing personal, but I have no business knowing, who you call, when you call, what you call. That's none of my business. That's your right, that you're as a private citizen. And law enforcement can't just say, okay, hand over the records because we want to see who's Billy talking to. Well, why? Well, we just want to see. Well, no, you don't have the right to do that. So, but I will look that up for you specifically, Billy. Billy, is there anything else you want to ask?
If your producer is a lawyer, Sandy, you don't know what you're talking about. What's the chapter and section? That's what I asked you.
Well, I just told you I don't know the specific chapter and section. Why? You think they can?
They don't have to tell you if your phone's being looked into. If it's under investigation, they don't have to tell you.
Without probable cause?
You have an investigation to establish probable cause.
No, you need Are you serious?
You don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, right. I'm sorry, buddy. Have you read the Constitution?
Yes, I have.
Okay, where does it say in the Constitution that the police can just access your phone records willy-nilly? Where?
If they're under investigation, they have a right to research.
Well, to have investigation, you have to have a probable cause. There's no probable cause.
An investigation establishes probable cause.
But they didn't establish probable cause. That's what you're not getting for the sixth time.
You twist the facts, sir.
No, I don't twist the facts, sir. With all due respect, they were spying on Cruz, and they were spying on Chuck Grassley. Tell me, what grounds would the FBI have to spy on Chuck Grassley? Go. Tell me. Go.
Depends on their investigation.
What do you mean, depends on their investigation?
They must be looking into some wrongdoing.
What's the wrongdoing?
That's what they're trying to look into. They're not going to divulge that.
No. Look it up. Look, honestly, Billy, I know you're a hack, but come on, man. We still live in a free country. When Point Blank asked, when Jack Smith was asked, what did Chuck Grassley do wrong? What specific crime did he commit? He could not give an answer. That's why, in the end, AT&T didn't comply. He never got access to the records because they wouldn't let him get access to the records because you're not allowed to give him access to the records. I'm sorry, man. Am I in the Soviet Union? Like, is this now the new Democratic Party? Because this is chilling. This is frightening. You mean to tell me that let's leave out the FBI. Let's just talk the police. You mean to tell me that the police can go to the phone company and say, hey, I have Verizon. Hey, give us Kuhner's records. Yeah, sure. Here it is. Okay, thanks. And you're okay with that? Hello?
You twist the facts. Yes, you twisted the facts.
No. Forget twisting the facts. I'm asking you a specific question. No facts have been twisted. I've just told you again. Jack Smith was denied. AT&T said, go fly a kite. We're not giving you Ted Cruz's phone records. It's illegal. That's why Boasberg now is going to get impeached over this. Because he broke the law in issuing that subpoena. You can't. In no democracy, forget United States, you can't do it in Canada, you can't do it in France, you can't do it in Britain, you can't do it in Japan. This is, to me, honest to God, this to me is chilling. This is 1984. So I'm asking you now a direct question, which you're not answering. All you keep saying is, I twist the facts, I twist the facts, I twist the facts. Can the police order the phone carrier, Verizon, to hand over my phone records? Yes or no?
Yes.
And you're okay with that?
To conduct an investigation to establish probable cause, yes.
To conduct an investigation to establish probable cause. So they don't have probable cause. So in other words, they have the right to a fishing expedition. They have the right to go through my private things in the hope that they'll find probable cause to charge me with something. I hate to tell you this. That's the KGB. That's the Stasi. That's illegal. What you're advocating is illegal. What you're advocating for is literally totalitarianism. You've got it backwards, buddy. You've got to have probable cause. Listen to me. I'm educating you. This is in our Constitution. This is in our Bill of Rights. By the way, this is in every Western democracy in the world. The police cannot go through, forget your phone records. They can't go into your home. They can't go through your private things. They can't go through your personal records. They can't go through your health records unless they have probable cause and then get a warrant from a judge with probable cause. They don't have the right to just go into your home and say, well, we're going to go into this home and we're going to look through everything. And if we find something, we'll establish probable cause. And then we'll go to a judge and then we'll launch an investigation. That's literally what they do in fascist, communist, dictatorial countries. So are you that desperate to get Ted Cruz? And I asked you, and that's why everybody told this clown, Jack Smith, to go fly a kite. What did Marsha Blackburn do? He couldn't name anything. So then why do you want her records? Well, January 6th. Well, I don't care. What did she do on January 6th that warrants this? He couldn't give an answer. Okay, what did Chuck Grassley do, the 90-year-old senator from Iowa? Well, I want to look at his records. Why? What did he do? I don't know. I just want to look at him. Go fly a kite. So you're so desperate to spy on Republicans, and it wasn't just the senators. Hundreds of organizations, hundreds of individuals, because you want to find something to get them on? And you tell me you're a small d Democrat? And you tell me you believe in our Constitution? I'm going to tell you to your face. You're another Bill in Sudbury. You're a totalitarian thug. Literally, that's Castro's Cuba. That's Soviet Union. That's Nazi Germany. That's North Korea. That's Venezuela. The police do what the hell they want. The citizens have no rights. This is, I mean, ay, ay, ay. Ay, ay, ay. See, now you know why Biden got away with all of his crimes. Look at this. This is the Democratic Party. And you want to know why Zoran Mamdani is rising? By the way, I've got to say this. I'm sorry, but here we are. I mean, I can't believe we're having this conversation. By the way, this is what happens when you don't teach the Constitution in schools. When you don't teach the Bill of Rights in school. This is the kind of people you end up with. Congressman Himes, you can look this up, okay? Congressman from Connecticut, rabid Democrat, is now attacking Trump. It seems off topic, but trust me, I'll bring it back to the topic. Saying that, whoa, Trump is engaging in these so-called extrajudicial killings by going after these narco-terrorists, in the Caribbean with their drug trafficking and the ships that they're smuggling this fentanyl in from. He says, you guys aren't going to like it when you have a President AOC and she starts going after our opponents. And in other words, if we get power, we're going to start killing you. In other words, if you're going to have extrajudicial killings, as they call them, quote unquote, against, by the way, Venezuelan Tren de Aragua narco terrorists, Well, then we're going to come after you here. We're going to go after our Republican opponents. We'll start ordering assassinations against you. And now I'm starting to understand where all the logic is coming from. Hey, we can do whatever we want. We're the Democratic Party. The deep state in the service of the party can do whatever you want. There are no checks and balances. We can spy on you. We can get your phone records. We can surveil you. We can go through your home. We can, by the way, have you ever heard of the Fourth Amendment? I'm just, never mind the First Amendment. Have you ever heard of the Fourth Amendment? I'm just, to Billy and Dedham. Ay, ay, ay. Ay, ay, ay. No, it's worse than Watergate. There's no question it's worse than Watergate. But look, let me tell you now where we are. Okay? I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This is where we are. And that's why if the Republicans know what's good for them and what's good for the country, they're now going to have to follow through. They're going to have to start putting Jack Smith in jail. They're going to have to put Merrick Garland in jail. They're going to have to teach these people a lesson. This is not a dictatorship. This is a constitutional republic. And yes, we are also a democracy. And you can't just willy-nilly override the fundamental civil liberties of your citizens and especially your political opponents because you hate them. But this is now what we're waking up to. And this is not an original point on my part. Like in Germany, 1/3 of Americans, us, conservatives, patriots, Trump supporters, we are now waking up to the fact that 1/3 of our countrymen and women want to kill us. And the other third are indifferent. They want to spy on us. They want to lock us up. They want to put us in prison. They want to assassinate us. It's so obvious. And so now they're openly saying, yeah, we don't care. You can be a senator. You can be a member of Congress. We don't care. You could be the head of a major charity or a nonprofit or whatever. We want your records. You better hand them over. No questions asked. You don't have any privacy. We're going to listen to your phone calls? Of course we're going to eavesdrop. We have every right to eavesdrop. This is like East Germany under the Stasi. Shut up. And we'll establish probable cause, and we'll see if there's a crime. We'll find it. That's socialism. That's communism. That's fascism. That's totalitarianism. 617-266-6868. Bruce in Woburn. Thanks for holding, Bruce, and welcome. Whoa, Bruce, they're out in force today, my friend.
All right, Jeff. You were on with this clown for a long time, but I want to say, Bill in Dedham, that's where he's from. Bill in Sudbury, Frank in Gloucester. I hate you in a non-communist way. So I know we're gonna go. You're gonna go into a break pretty soon. I'm gonna get cut off, but I want to just go from what's going on right now. And I know Cash Patel's kicking some butt. Dan Bongino, Pam better step up to the plate. I say, fire the judges. Go after, because what's going on right now, I'll bet you they open up the pearly gates, Jeff, with what's going on after Trump went on his trip and he's coming back. Now, these people have to wake up. These Republicans have to wake up and smell the coffee. Unfortunately, Charlie Kirk can't wake up and smell the coffee because he got dead. They tried to kill our president, and what's going on right now, I bet you this is a smoke screen. The swamp is muddying the waters, trying to make everything look like it's all Trump's fault. It's not. But I'll bet you Congress opens up the gates, and because if they don't, there's going to be like unbelievable bad things happening with these weirdos that don't get their free money.
Oh, Bruce, look, you're absolutely dead on. And look, even, I used to like the show in its early years. I thought the first couple seasons were very good. I thought afterwards it just got very woke and very predictable and very liberal. So I haven't watched later seasons, and I haven't watched the later seasons, period. But even if you watch Law and Order, literally Law and Order, you know how many episodes? I mean, just a basic TV show. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, this is from a sheriff, good friend of mine, who texted me in response to my argument, my phone call that I had with the Moonbat, Billy, and Dedham. Jeff, 2 points. Number one, yes, you need a court order to go into someone's phone, and you also must establish some proof of wrongdoing before law enforcement agencies can get a wiretap. He didn't write this, but it's almost like, duh, like, yeah. And number two, ask the lefty Moonbats if they are okay with Trump's DOJ or his FBI to start listening to Barack and Michelle Obama's phones, just to see if they've done something wrong, quote unquote. Maybe if they, 86th that chef of Obama's on Martha's Vineyard. Or maybe Trump's FBI and DOJ want to get something on Nancy and Paul Pelosi. And I don't mean a good stock tip. Can they have their records? Can they just start looking at their phones and get their phone database? Or maybe start listening into their phone conversations? How do you think they would react to that? Well, they would scream bloody murder. It would be worse than Watergate. And unlike the Republicans, you would see actual hearings day and night, saturation coverage, and I'm telling you, people would go to jail. You take it to the bank. But they've now done it to Republicans. And so the question now is, what are they going to do about it? Bill in Medfield. Thanks for holding, Bill, and welcome.
How's it going, Jeff?
Good. How are you, Bill?
Good. I've done fooling around because I done had my fun. Don't want to see no more damage done. Give me back my bullets. It's time to play dirty now. It's time to fight dirty like they do in the street. Not the Queens of Marksbury rules. When they go to stand to punch you in the mouth, you kick them in the groin. Or you bite like Mike Tyson did. You bite their ear. Even.
Well, Bill, look, let me just say this. I hear your passion. I really do. Bill, they don't have to do any of that. All they got to do is hold hearings, televise them, and have Pam Bondi. Look, we have the Department of Justice. We have the FBI now. We've got the leadership. We've got, the deputy FBI director is Dan Bongino. And call in Merrick Garland, put him under oath. He's going to fold like a cheap suit. Call them all in. Call in Jack Smith, under oath, subpoena him, one by one, and put him in jail. They broke the law. There's no question they broke the law. This is black letter law. You can't spy on your political opponents. You can't put together an enemies list and start going after them on literally the flimsiest of pretexts. And gather their phone records in private? Go through their phone database in private? Spy and surveil them in private? And then you get a judge to give an absolutely illegal, unconstitutional order that AT&T laughed in their face and said, yeah, right, no, we're not going to hand you, you're not getting Ted Cruz's phone records. What are you, crazy? No, the answer is no. So all they got to do is just simply, grow some cojones. Seriously, grow some stones. And look, that's why you're paying Pam Bondi the big bucks. Trump wanted her. He keeps saying she's a great AG. It's time for her now to prove it. Start locking, investigate, charge, arrest, and lock up. Start putting people in jail. Because I guarantee you, if Trump did this to Democrats, can you imagine if he was secretly spying on Chuck Schumer? I mean, let me just flip it. And that Pam Bondi was ordering a special counsel. I mean, just to use, Merrick Garland was the AG under Biden. So that the Trump Department of Justice and the Trump FBI were listening in on phone calls and secretly getting the phone records and the database of leading senators. Schumer, Elizabeth Warren, you can run down the list, Bernie Sanders, and secretly spying on Democrat donors and saying, yeah, let's get them all. Let's just listen and look and search, and eventually we'll find some kind of a crime.
The Biden Justice Department signed off on issuing subpoenas for the phone records of at least 9 U.S. senators. 20% of the Republicans in the United States Senate were the target of this fishing expedition. They did so in complete contravention of the Constitution, of separation of powers, of the speech and debate clause, of free speech, of basic rights of privacy. This is an executive who believes it is justified spying on their opponents in the legislature because they convince themselves the ends justify the means.
Bingo. And Cruz is now calling it Biden's Watergate. Senator Chuck Grassley, who's the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee. By the way, that's the committee that's going to hold Watergate-style hearings, has said it's worse than Watergate. And they're both right. And now the question is, will the Republicans finally have the guts, the stones, the spine, whatever you want to call it, to hold Democrats accountable? Starting with former Attorney General Merrick Garland, Special Counsel Jack Smith. You can run down the whole line. FBI Director Christopher Wray, who signed off on all of this illegal spying and surveillance. Trust me when I tell you this. This scandal can blow the swamp wide open. 617-266-6868. In other words, what they did to President Donald Trump and what they did to us, they've now been caught doing to literally hundreds of Republican senators, members of Congress, organizations, donors, conservative activists, and conservative media figures. Jerry on the Cape. Thanks for holding, Jerry, and welcome.
Comrade.
Comrade Jerry, how are you, my friend?
It's like the motherland, no?
It's like we back in Mother Russia.
Jeff, what I would like to know is, where are all these congressmen and senators allocating the funds within the budget to build that super center out in Utah and that encryption center down in Texas to spy on everyday Americans? They have all of our telecommunications records. They have no right to any of that. Not that I've done anything wrong, or not that you've done, or this audience has done anything wrong. They have no rights to any of that. They spied on us. Do you think they got court orders to spy on us? No. They bypassed everything. They went directly to the They spied on the telecommunications companies and extracted all the information from them without them even knowing it. So where was the court order there, Jeff?
Jerry, look, you're absolutely correct. It's the hypocrisy. They didn't care when it happened to us. but now it happened to them. And now that it happened to them, they're furious. Now, my only attitude is better late than never. I mean, you're right. They're hypocrites. To me, the big question now is, Jerry, and you've been following politics for a very long time. You're a very astute observer. Because it was them, because they were the ones now who were illegally spied on. They were the ones who were put on a political enemies list. They were the ones now who were the victims of a fishing expedition to destroy them, their reputations, and maybe their freedoms. Do you think that they will hold Watergate-style hearings? Will they call Merrick Garland under oath? Will they call Jack Smith under oath? In other words, are they finally going to start putting people in jail? What say you?
In circus, Jeff. It's going to just be a lot of kabuki theater. They'll have their hearings and everything, but nobody will go to jail. I was reading something yesterday, Jeff. There was somebody that threatened to kill someone, one of the politicians. I can't remember who it was. They gave him 3 months in jail. 3 months. If you think any of these people are going to go to jail, I don't believe it, Jeff. I think the system is way too corrupt.
Interesting.
There has to be military tribunals. That's what should happen.
So I'm just curious, Jerry, now why is it, let's just take Ted Cruz, just because he's the one that, really led that press conference yesterday, and you could tell he was angry, and I don't blame him. I mean, he was on fire, but he was angry. He was hot under the collar. Why wouldn't a guy like Ted Cruz say, you know what, you SOBs, you're trying to find out if I'm cheating on my wife, let's be honest. That's what this was all about. And you're looking to destroy me, humiliate me, and my wife, and my children, and my families, and you use January 6th as the ridiculous pretext to go after my most personal private information. Well, you know what? Screw you. You're going to burn. You're going to burn. Now, does Ted Cruz not have enough self-respect for himself and his wife and his family and his privacy? What is he afraid of? Why won't he say we're going to hold these hearings and we're going to make criminal referrals to Pam Bondi? We're going to go to the DOJ and we're going to make the case and we're going to say, look, start arresting people. What is Ted Cruz afraid of?
The swamp's after him. The swamp's after all of us, Jeff. And that's what everybody's afraid of. They want to keep their status. They want to keep the status quo. In other words, Ted Cruz still wants to be a senator, so you're going to hear bluster out of him, of course, but I don't think it's going to be much ado about nothing. I don't think anyone's going to jail, Jeff.
Yeah, see, that's what's very depressing. Honestly, Jerry, I think that's why our politics is broken, because I fear you're probably right. That's why cynicism is setting in. That's the problem now. With the Democrats commit crimes, the Republicans let them get away with it. And I think that's what's opening the door now to a third party. I think it's now almost inevitable. I mean, if you're not going to fight, this is the hill to die on. But if you're not going to die on this hill, then you're not going to die on any hill. So, Jerry, as always, very good call. Look, let me just ask you this, okay? Here, let's just make it really simple. You find out that the opposition party, the party in power, is literally putting a camera in your bedroom. They're putting a camera in your bedroom. Now, just for the sake of argument, okay? It's a family show, so I got to be careful. You're not married or you don't have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, so there's nothing embarrassing. I mean, literally, you put on your pajamas, you go to bed, you put the covers on you, and day in and day out, and day in and day out, night after night after night after night after night. So they found nothing. Because you're like me. You lead a very boring life. Although I do sleep with my wife, but you know what I'm saying. Okay, so you get in there, pajamas on, blanket on. There's nobody there. There's nothing to see. There's no sex tape. There's no infidelity. There's nothing. There's no embarrassment. It's just nothing. But they invaded your privacy in the most fundamental way possible. And with the intent of trying to find something incriminating to destroy you. Now, you find this out. Would you be livid? would you feel, honestly, would you feel grossly violated? I would. I would. For the simple reason is it's none of your business. You know, to watch me in my bed, to watch me sleep, to watch me go to the bathroom, to watch me. I'm not talking about hanky panky. I'm just saying you're there in bed. I'm saying it's all benign. It doesn't matter. It's none of your business. It's like when they listen in on your phone calls and you're just chit chatting with your brother or sister or friend and you're just talking about, I don't know, the game this weekend. Okay. Or whatever. Well, what are the plans for Thanksgiving? You're like, you have no right to listen in on my phone calls. It's not for you to listen to. It's a violation of my privacy. It's a violation of my dignity. It's a violation of my fundamental rights. No, especially if the intent was you want to dig up dirt to destroy me and my family. Now, let me ask you this. Would you be motivated to say they got to go to jail? Like swamp, no swamp, get along, no get along? I know I would. I mean, forget anything else, not even for political, settling scores. Out of sheer outrage. Out of sheer respect for myself, my wife, my children, my family, my body, my autonomy, my privacy. I'd be like, no, this is beyond acceptable. I'm an autonomous, free person. You don't have the right to violate my private personal space. Especially on top of it all because you want to ultimately destroy me. Either humiliate me or literally send me to jail to try to find something, nefarious or illegal. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I promise I'm going to take some more calls, but I do want to move because there's another second major scandal that's engulfing now the Biden regime or the former Biden regime. And again, this this could have massive implications. But just very quickly, this is a text I got from 917. You can text the Kuhner Man 70470-70470. And the reason why I'm reading it is, it wasn't always like this. Really, in our history, people were held accountable in government, very high up, if they committed obvious crimes and abuses of power. So this idea of the swamp always getting away with it, this is a very new thing. So let me just give you an example, and this is from 917. Jeff, I know you have made the reference to Watergate, but it's a good teaching moment to emphasize again, and this is all true, that Richard Nixon's own Attorney General, John Mitchell, so the AG, basically the Pam Bondi at the time, or the Merrick Garland at the time, as well as his chief aides, H.R. Bob Haldeman, John D. Ehrlichman, and Charles Colson, were given substantial prison terms. Now, here's the key. Listen to this. None of them participated in the Watergate crimes. All they did was keep their mouths shut after the crime was discovered. And this constituted obstruction of justice. Now, based on this, the actual architects of these crimes against the GOP should go to jail for decades. And those who knew and did nothing should be right in the next cell. Bingo. Bingo. If the Republicans want to take out the former Biden regime, and if they want to really dismantle the deep state, this is now on a silver platter. I mean, they really got them on it's been handed to them on a silver platter. The question is, do they want to do it? Heather in Maine. Thanks for holding, Heather, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you?
Very good. How are you, Heather?
I'm doing great, thank you. Well, Judge Bozo needs to go, obviously. the January 6th committee, this just reminds me of their abuse of power. The abuse of power from the Biden government censoring me on Facebook when I was talking about Fauci and COVID and, various other things, like just the way they treated us. So I'm a little annoyed that they didn't do anything about it then, but I'm glad and I hope that they will do something about it now. I do believe that all roads lead back to Soros and China buying our swamps and our Democrats, like Janet Mills in Maine, who was funded by, the marijuana industry. And they've got over 300 farms up in Maine using really, really toxic pesticides, growing pot, stuff that we can't even really test for. And they're growing it and selling it all across our country and getting away with it. I just think it's so corrupt. These people are bought. All these Democrats, they need to go.
Oh, I'm so with you, Heather. Honestly, you're absolutely you're spot on. And you mentioned the crimes from China, Fauci, the China lobby. The rot runs very, very deep. And look, I want Trump to really succeed. Obviously, I don't like inflation. I think inflation is still too high. I wanted him to secure that border. He's done a great job. I want mass deportations. Look, I know he's got a lot on his plate, but I go back to his fundamental promise of 10 years ago to drain the swamp. And that, to me, if you want to say above everything else, what is the number one thing I want Trump to do? I want him to drain the swamp. Because if he doesn't drain the swamp, then everything else he accomplishes will only be short-term and temporary. Because they'll break his strong border. They'll, all the millions of illegals he's deported, they'll bring them all back in. They'll rekindle inflation. They'll make crime explode again on the streets. They'll start all these new wars. So what I'm saying is everything that he's achieving, which are great achievements, please don't misunderstand me. But if you don't suck that swamp dry, if you don't drain it and drain it to the bone, if you don't utterly dismantle and destroy it, then they're just going to keep coming back and coming back and coming back. And that, to me, is why I think that should be mission numero uno, number one for President Trump. And so, Heather, I think your point is absolutely spot on. Heather, thank you very much for that call. Now, speaking of the swamp, there is a bombshell, and it truly is a bombshell report from the House Oversight Committee led by James Comer. And Mr. Autopen, Joe Biden. Well, now you want to talk about, look at some of the pardons that he gave out in the waning days of his sham presidency. He gave it to the January 6th committee, people like Liz Cheney. He gave it to Jamie Raskin, these other liars on January 6th, to Tony Fauci, Chicken Little, so that he would never be held accountable. And they were preemptive pardons. These are pardons that go back forever. Of course, he pardoned his own family members. And especially the only pardon that he didn't use an auto pen was for his corrupt son, Hunter Biden. That's the only one he did with personally signing off on. Well, listen now to this. After an exhaustive investigation, the House Republicans now have released their final 100-page report. And to say it is devastating is an understatement. It's the understatement of the century. Joe Biden was clearly suffering from mental decline and dementia. He mentally, physically was incapable of being president of the United States, especially within the last couple of years of his administration. And that's what this bombshell report shows beyond a shadow of a doubt. In fact, under oath, over many months, They put everybody in Biden's inner circle, known as the quote-unquote Politburo. They put them all under oath, and they asked them to describe what they saw in the White House. How often did they see Joe Biden? How was he when he saw them? When they saw him. Was he lucid? Was he there? Was he present? Or did he have memory lapses and had no idea what his name was and what he was doing and what time of day it was? And the report now, it's what I'm saying. It dots its I's, it crosses its T's. Neera Tanden, who was Biden's Biden's personal secretary. Now remember, the personal secretary should be seeing the president at least 3 or 4 hours a day. She now says she hardly ever saw him. In her own words, under oath. His personal spokesperson, Ian Sams, who, again, is his personal spokesperson. For example, that person should be seeing the president at least a couple hours every day. I'm not saying they're having one-on-one conversations, but the president is meeting, the House Minority Leader or the House Majority Leader or the Senate Majority Leader or the member of the cabinet or whatever. And he's there taking notes, watching. So he should be in contact with the president every day, at least several hours a day. He says he saw him twice in 2 years. Under oath, twice in 2 years. And by the way, Ian Sams was the same guy who kept telling the media over and over and over again, when asked, is Biden in good cognitive health? Is Biden all there? Is Biden suffering mental decline? Oh, no, he's fit as a fiddle. Oh, yeah, we can't keep up with him. Well, how do you know? By your own admission under oath. You just said you've only seen him in the last 2 years 2 times. In other words, you hardly ever saw him. So now, and you've been telling the media in the country, my God, he could run marathons. Oh, my God, Joey, he's like the ever-ready bunny. He just keeps going. I'm exhausted. I can't keep up with him. It turns out it was a load of bull, you know what, Bravo Sierra. BS. Now, Jeff Zients, it turns out, Chief of Staff. Now it looks like he was the one that played a key role in the auto pen. So what now happened is, under oath, they all started to give different, conflicting, contradictory stories. All of them are claiming they have no idea who was controlling the auto pen. It's now we're back to Sergeant Schultz. I know nothing. I see nothing. I hear nothing. So that's everybody. I don't know. Jeff Zients says, I don't know. Ask Neera Tanden. Neera Tanden says, I don't know. Ask Ian Sams. Ian Sams says, I don't know. Ask Jeff Zients. So it's like ring around the rosy. Okay, everybody is playing stupid. But the fact of the matter is, this is what's incredible. They were issuing executive order after executive order, pardon after pardon to Fauci, to Liz Cheney, to Jamie Raskin, to the Biden crime family, to thousands and thousands of criminal defendants, many of them drug dealers and drug traffickers. By the way, a chunk of them, Hunter Biden's friends. Hunter Biden's friends. And now it turns out that when they were making decisions on pardons in which Biden was never in the room, Biden was up in Delaware. Biden is out of it. In fact, they admitted under oath that they had to constantly lessen his workload. They admitted this. They're saying, well, no, we would get him up at 10 o'clock. Or we would call a lid by 2 or 1 or 3. No, we wanted to make sure that, if he did a press conference, that it was very short. We wrote out all the notes for him. He had to read his teleprompter because we noticed he kept forgetting things all the time. So on the one hand, they're saying they had to basically coddle and carry him, while simultaneously saying, we never saw anything wrong with him. Oh, he was in top physical, mental shape. But it doesn't matter. Biden never gave express written approval for almost every single pardon or executive order in the last 2 years of his presidency. He had no idea what was going on. None. In other words, the presidency was hijacked. They were forging Biden's signature, but it gets even worse. Hunter Biden began to make decisions on who should get a pardon and who shouldn't, and he was in the room when people who should be getting a pardon were being discussed, and he was the one saying, no, this person gets a pardon, this person doesn't get a pardon, which begs the question, were they selling pardons? Because that's all Hunter did. Remember, all Hunter did was sell influence to his father. That was the basis of the Biden crime family. Pay to play. You pay them, they give you a favor. You pay them, they do something for you. And suddenly now, thousands and thousands of these drug dealers that nobody had ever heard of were getting pardoned left, right, and center, especially in the last couple months of Biden's presidency. He wasn't there. He had no clue what was going on. It was all going through Hunter Biden. Now, when everything is said and done, they perpetrated a fraud upon the American people. And what this report now shows, and let me quote to you Kuhner directly. He goes, we have done all the heavy lifting. We've got all the players. We show how each one of them lied, how each one of them abused their bureaucratic power. They do not have the legal authority to issue any pardons. Many of them were taking money. Many of them were selling pardons. Many of them usurped the chain of command. And we've now given this on a silver platter to Pam Bondi. All she's got to do now is call these people in and start launching investigations. And it's like a trail of breadcrumbs. We've led them all the way. And then issue indictment after indictment after indictment. Listen now to Kuhner saying they abused the pardon power and they abused the auto pen. Biden had no idea what the hell they were signing, which means many of his executive orders and all of his pardons, and this is what's important, including that of Fauci, including that of Liz Cheney, of Jamie Raskin, of the entire January 6th committee, of his stinking crime family, all of those pardons now should be null and void. Roll cut 12. This is Kuhner on Real America's Voice. Roll cut 12, Mike.
I think that the DOJ needs to take this and run. John, we've handed this to Pam Bondi on a silver platter.
Yep,
we've done all the heavy lifting. We've done the depositions. We've combed through the emails. I mean, this is the hard, tedious work of an investigation. Now it's up to her to bring these people in. If there's anything in the report that's inaccurate, if there's anything in the deposition that we reported that are mischaracterized, now here's your opportunity to try to defend the other position. If not, then the report is 100% accurate, and the pardons need to be declared null and void immediately. I would go further, but now this is me, and I would hold some of these people accountable for misrepresenting the president's health and for abusing their power as a bureaucrat in the White House that was essentially forging the president's name on pardons.
Bingo. He's right. They were forging his name. There's no question. And they perpetrated a massive fraud upon the American people. They took a man who had no business being president, who clearly they should have invoked the 25th Amendment, and they systematically covered up for him. And they ran the White House and they ran the presidency in his name. And they covered it all up. Now, that's treason. That's literally treason. And they should go to jail, all of them. And the pardons should all be declared null and void. His executive orders should be all declared null and void. Which means you almost literally overturned the entire Biden presidency. Now, listen to James Comer, because he's saying it's even more nefarious than that. Hunter Biden, and this is a new angle, he was intimately involved in who got which pardon and when. And with Hunter Biden, money is always exchanging hands. And so the question now is this like another Burisma? Did they literally make millions of dollars pimping out the auto pen and giving drug traffickers and drug dealers pardons in exchange for cash? Roll cut 12A, Mike.
You could ask a lot of questions. I know some of the people that were pardoned from Kentucky. These are wealthy Democrat donors. We heard from Jeff Zients that Hunter Biden was in the room where the decision-making was taking place on the pardon. Look, I don't think we need to say any more on this show about Hunter Biden being in the room with pardons when people have the potential to maybe be paying for pardons. We didn't go that route. We just tried to investigate the auto pen and the president's health and mental fitness. But I think the Department of Justice could go a lot further. I mean, to have Hunter Biden in the room talking about any pardons, I mean, that's pretty bad in itself. But a guy that we proved, John, and you all have reported on many times, was taking money from our adversaries around the world, peddling access for his father's position as vice president of the United States. Having him in the room when you're issuing thousands of pardons with the auto pen, I mean, that's suspicious in itself.
Oh, I'll go even further. I mean, he's a congressman, so he's being a little careful. I'll go even further. I'll bet you the best freaking steak at the best steakhouse of your choice and all the fixings. I'll even throw in a bottle of wine. I mean, what do you want, dessert? I'll give you dessert. Seriously. Appetizer, everything. I guarantee you, if that grifter and scumbag and cokehead Hunter Biden's involved with pardons, they sold out the auto pen and the pardon power to the highest bidder. Hunter was meeting his friends, his drug dealer buddies who were in prison, and said, you want to get out? I've got a get out of jail free card. Okay, you got to hear it to believe it. I'm telling you, you got to hear it to believe it. Now, you want to see the kind of corruption that was inundating the entire Biden White House, the Biden regime, the kind of money that was flowing into that place. And this is how they kept Biden propped up. This is how it was a conspiracy. What this report now shows, this was clearly a conspiracy among senior Biden officials and aides. And they all made money off of it. They were pimping out the pardon power. They were selling it. They were selling it to the highest bidder. They were pimping out the White House and the presidency as they let Joe Biden eat ice cream, call a lid by 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, send him up to Rehoboth Beach. He spent nearly 50% of his time while he was president in Delaware, not in the White House, in Delaware. And he was, on a beach chair and napping and sleeping and they deliberately, you can see it. It's all in the report where you have chief of staff, personal secretary, personal spokesman, top aide, top advisors, all saying he couldn't work more than 3-4 hours a day. No, we had to lighten his load. No, we had to make sure he couldn't walk up certain steps. No, we had to keep, keep him away from the press. And when we did, we had to make it very short. Everything had to be written out. Literally everything. He forgot everybody's name. He forgot dates. So they were treating him almost like a baby. They were like spoon feeding him. And the key was they kept him away from everybody. They kept him away from Chuck Schumer. They kept him away from Nancy Pelosi. They kept him away from even amongst themselves. What's amazing is people that should be working, think of a Susie Wiles, right? She's with Trump all day, every day. Okay, chief, that's that chief of staff. The chief of staff, Ron Klain, if I saw him once every 2 or 3 weeks, once every 4 weeks, others once a year, twice a year. So they kept him deliberately away from everybody, and everybody was making money. Now, one of his top aides, you got to hear it to believe it. One of his top aides, this was a person who covered up for Biden and who also covered up for the auto pen use. His name is Mike Donnellan. He's now put under oath, and they have emails of him. He was getting money. He was getting money to fix things for Biden, to cover up for Biden. And then he's promised that if you keep this auto pen scandal hush-hush, and if you keep Biden's age and his dementia hush-hush, if he wins re-election, you're going to get $4 million. You've already made $4 million. We're going to give you a quote-unquote bonus of $4 million. Listen, here is Mike Donnellan, under oath, one of the people of Biden's so-called Politburo, his inner circle, involved in the cover-up of Dementia Joe and President Auto Pen. Roll cut 100, Mike.
Would you have received a bonus depending on the way the campaign went? Was that a possibility?
How the campaign went.
Were there any circumstances in which you would have received a bonus?
Yes, there was.
What were those circumstances?
That Joe Biden would have been reelected president of the United States.
What would the bonus have been?
I believe it would have been $4 million.
In addition to the $4 million that you were already paid?
Yes.
Oh, you laugh or you cry. What a whorehouse. You know that movie, The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas? Oh, this was the best little whorehouse in Washington. What a freaking whorehouse. So he got $4 million in bonuses up to that point for all these little, favors that he was doing. He was their fix-it guy. And if all you got to do is get Joey across that finish line, you get Joey over that finish line, and you'd get another bonus, right? Yeah. How much? Well, another $4 million. So the auto pen, yeah, we keep that hush-hush. Yeah, okay. The fact that he's demented, yeah, we keep that hush-hush. Yep. So people are signing executive orders on really, and the president is, he's lost his mind in Rehoboth. He has no clue what's going on. Yep. They literally were pimping out the White House to the highest bidder. And everybody was in on it. Shield him, cover it up, and make money. Everybody was the president of the United States, and they did favors, and in return, they made an immense amount of cash.
Would you have received a bonus depending on the way the campaign went? Was that a possibility?
How the campaign went.
Were there any circumstances in which you would have received a bonus?
Yes, there was.
What were those circumstances?
That Joe Biden would have been reelected president of the United States.
What would the bonus have been?
I believe it would have been $4 million.
In addition to the $4 million that you were already paid?
Yes.
Unbelievable. I mean, it's just, you can't make this up. I'm telling, this is, this is, no, it really was Hunter's White House. This is, boy, talk about the Biden crime family. 9:33 now on the great WRKO, Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. So the House Oversight Committee that released this bombshell report on clearly that Biden suffered from mental cognitive decline. Everybody knew it. His aides systematically covered it up. They abused the auto pen. In fact, they sold it out. They pimped it out. And now those pardons that were issued, those executive orders, should be null and void. There's no question. Well, they released this video, and he was one of Biden's top aides. That's Mike Donnellan, where he literally now admits under oath that he was paid to cover up Biden's cognitive decline, and that he got paid $4 million to orchestrate the cover-up and the auto pen and the use of the auto pen, and to make sure that people kept saying and believing that Joe Biden was, had all his faculties, and that all he had to do was help make sure that Biden wins the re-election, and then he'd get another $4 million. Now, what's incredible is nobody asked the obvious question. Where was the money going to come from? Who the hell's paying him, A, the first $4 million, and then B, the second $4 million, should they have perpetrated and pulled off that fraud? And how much was Neera Tanden making? How much was Ron Klain making? All these other Biden aides, Ian Sams, Jeff Zients, Lisa Monaco. How much were they all making as they systematically covered up for Joe Biden and were using the auto pen? Because I'll tell you this, they all left the White House filthy, filthy, filthy rich. So, again, Comer has now made a criminal referral to Pam Bondi, saying we've done all of the hard work, we've done all of the investigations, we've done all of the interviews, we've laid out all the facts. It's like the breadcrumbs. We're leading you right to the indictments. All Pam Bondi now has to do is investigate, put people under oath, and start charging them. So now we're going to find out if Pam Bondi really has what it takes to be Attorney General. So let me ask all of you, and this is really now the $64,000 question. Will anybody go to jail? Will anybody be held accountable? Will Biden's pardons, especially the ones, say, of Fauci, will they be declared null and void? 617-266-6868 is the number. Richard in Hudson. Thanks for holding, Richard, and welcome.
Yes, thank you very much, Jeff. Earlier you had a probable cause question. If this is not a probable cause to investigate every bank account from these crooked bureaucrats, and basically unconstitutional bureaucrats, this has all been set up. You talk about Obama as a man in an empty suit. We now have Biden, the man in an empty office. We have 13 intelligence agencies that could get all the goods in the world on Trump, years ago. It was this, it was that, it was the Russian collusion, it was everything. For God's sake, what in the hell are we paying all these intel people for, these agencies? I mean, we have the CIA, we have...
Richard, thank you very, very much for that call. No, I hate to disagree with you, Richard. I mean, your points are very valid. Don't get me wrong. We're not the dumbest country in the world. What sadly is we're becoming the most corrupt country in the world. That's what we clearly saw under Biden. Look, let me tell you what's come out of the report. Again, this should be front page. This should be 24/7 media saturation coverage. There is a meeting with the president. Okay? Joe Biden. He stole the election, but whatever. He was president at the time. There's a meeting with him. Everybody's in the room. He is staring into outer space. He's not there. He's drooling. Like the saliva is rolling down his lips, down his chin. And they just go on in the meeting like he isn't there. And Jill Biden was in the room. Hunter Biden was in the room. All of his aides are in the room. And nobody said a word. And the what is it? It goes on for about, I think, 90 minutes. And he's just, I'm sorry, he's like, if you can just picture like my tongue sticking out and saliva, spit going right down my chin and down my right down my mouth and onto my chin and onto my suit. And he's like, They knew. Everybody knew. The CIA knew. See, this is to me that's scary about this. We had a president of the United States who was a mental vegetable, who was a shadow of his former self, who literally is gone mentally, cognitively, in many ways physically. He's finished. He's gone. Put him up in in an old folks home, a long-term assisted living facility. The CIA knew, they covered it up. The FBI knew, covered it up. The NSA knew, covered it up. The media knew, they covered it up. Schumer knew, covered it up. Pelosi knew, covered it up. Everybody covered it up. And all of his aides and his inner circle, they made money. They enriched themselves off of covering it up. You see, you have to understand, this is what's important. They had the auto pen. They had the ability to put his signature on any piece of paper. And that's an immense power. He's the commander-in-chief. So think about it. Hey, you want to open up the border? Yeah. Anita Dunn. Yeah, let's open up the border. Put it on that auto pen. Get that auto pen ready. Really? You want the Green New Deal? Huh? You want to give all these subsidies to these EV makers? And of course we get kickbacks. I mean, we'll make a fortune off of this. Hey, we're going to send them billions and billions, if not hundreds of billions of dollars. What do we care? It's on the taxpayers' dime. It's not ours. And we make money, comes back to us. We become millionaires. Just sign that executive order. There it is, baby. Hey, this guy wants a pardon. He's a big-time drug dealer. Really? He's willing to pay $500,000. Okay, we'll sign that one. Joey's in Rehoboth. What the hell does he know? He's the vegetable. And I could go on and on and on and on. Now, CNN didn't report about Comer's report. CNN doesn't want to have James Comer on. MSNBC doesn't want to have James Comer on. CBS News, ABC News, NBC News, I could go on and on. Why? Because the media was complicit in this. Look, Trump has been saying this forever. And he said it again while he was in Asia. Apparently now it's come out. He's hammered out a great deal with Xi Jinping. He made a great deal on trade. He made a great deal on soybeans. He made a great deal on them cutting back these chemicals that they send to make fentanyl. So apparently he got a great deal with the Chinese. But anyway, in the midst of making this great deal, he's like, are any of you reading the House report? Are any of you seeing this is the biggest scandal in American history? You had a clearly incompetent, physically, mentally incapacitated president of the United States. 617-266-6868 is the number. Courtney on Messenger makes a very good point. Jeff, drag, quote-unquote, Dr. Jill Biden in. She's probably the most guilty. Well, Courtney, you're completely right. You know, we were asking ourselves during the entire Biden presidency, right, how many conversations did we have on so many shows? Where's his family? Where's the wife, Dr. Jill? Where's Hunter? Where are the kids? You know, where are the brothers? Stop this. This is humiliating. This is embarrassing. For his dignity, for God's sake, get him out of public in life, put him somewhere private, assisted living, whatever. Well, now you know why. They were all making money hand over fist. Dr. Jill, Hunter, the brothers, Jimmy, Frankie, everybody, the aides, his chief of staff, his spokespeople, everybody were pimping out that presidency. And Joe, Biden is like, and he's got saliva leaking down his chin, and he's staring into outer space, or 2:00. Oh, it's bedtime. Give him his nap. Oh, Joey got up at 5:30. Okay, here's a little ice cream for you. Chocolate chip mint. It's your favorite. Go, Joey. Ay. Marlene in Waltham. Thanks for holding, Marlene, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. I love you. We all love you. What happened to no one is above the law. Pertaining to Ted Cruz, I think they got something on him. That's the purpose of all this intimidated information. They'll hold it until they can use it. And what happened to the wiretapping they did on President Trump, first presidency or before the presidency, at his New York dwelling? What happened to all that? I haven't heard anything. Maybe you know about that.
Oh, that's a great point. Marlene, and please don't go because I want to ask you a quick question. They were wiretapping his phone at his office, Trump Tower. They were wiretapping the White House itself after he got, inaugurated and was put into, installed as president of the United States. They were spying on him while he was president. They were spying on him and listening on his phone calls, cell phone, and at the one at Trump Tower, after he got elected in November of 2016. That was all under the orders of Obama. That's Crossfire Hurricane. And with the full collusion of Comey and then CIA Director John Brennan and James Clapper, the DNI chief. And that was all illegal spying. And you're right, Marlene, nothing came of it. Marlene, this is the question I have. If you remember, at the time and for years after, we said it, you said it, I said it. If they can do this to the President of the United States, they can do it to you, they can do it to me, they can do it to anybody. But they can also do it to any Republican in Congress. And it's as if, Marlene, these people in the swamp thought, no, they won't do it to us. Maybe to Trump, maybe to the peasants, but not us. Marlene, shouldn't the Republicans have foreseen if they were going to spy on Trump, why the hell wouldn't they spy on you? Marlene, agree, disagree?
Agree 100% and more. 100% and more. I mean, and they could spy, just like one of your person that just spoke. We have all this departments. How many intelligence departments we have and all this and that. What are they being used for? There's a lot in there, Jeff. There's so much in there. Even private companies, Google, Yahoo, everybody that has all your information, they'll buy them out.
Oh, there's no question. You're right. No, you're right. No, it's true. Look, what is it? What did I buy? I forget what it is. I bought a hoodie. That's right. I bought a hoodie. And it was just on Amazon, private purchase, right? Go to Amazon, boom. I got myself a hoodie, an X-Men hoodie, and I got Ashton a Venom hoodie, like a Spider-Man villain hoodie. And all I now is just my iPad is bombarded with ads for hoodies. And I get emails, hoodies, everything. You watch something on YouTube, hoodies. And I'm like, how the hell does Facebook know I like hoodies? Or that I had bought a hoodie? Or, YouTube? Or it doesn't matter. Anywhere I go now, I'm always being bombarded ads for hoodies. So I'm thinking, no, they sold my information. And now they harass me to the point that I regret I bought it. No, really. Like I said, Ashton, the next time we're just going to go to some store, pay cash, and nobody will know you and I bought a hoodie.